Thank you, thank you. I love being here, by the way. I've been here before. Some faces I recognize, and I shared this at the first service. It happened again at the second. You know, we were singing and all of this, and then these tears started coming out of my eyes, and because there's such an energy in this church. Do you know that? Yeah. You know, I've been to a lot of Unity churches, and there are very few that I like as much as the one I just left. And this is one of them. Because of that energy, because you can feel that aliveness, you can feel that God's Spirit in here. You can, you know, and I know it's from the consciousness of your Reverend Alice. And I just want to say, she was saying, she always amazes me because she was the youngest in our class. And I remember thinking, how did she get so wise so young? It took me a lot of years, wrinkles, gray hair, which are hidden, but they're there, you know, to get some wisdom. And she just was like, where did she come from? She's an old soul, is the only way I can think of it. A very old soul who's worked her journey through many lifetimes. And then she said to me that today, that she's doing this series on the lessons of the avatars, and she asked me if I would do Buddha. And I was like, I love Buddha. Yeah, I get to do Buddha. So if you come to my house, there was Buddha all over the place. And I think the reason that I love Buddha so much is I tend to be a very practical person. Although I may cry when I'm like charged energetically, I tend to be, I don't know. I'm not an emotional person. I don't cry a lot. Let me just say that. And I tend to think in my head a lot. And so when I first read about Buddhism, I thought, I can relate to this. This is about this mental thinking. Oh, excuse me, I can't do stairs. So if you can't see me, I'm sorry. This is as tall as I get. I just don't get any taller than this. Anyway, so it just made so much sense. But yet I could follow these teachings and still believe in the teachings of unity. They kind of all work together, which was really good for me. Since I was a unity minister, I thought it would be good if I still believed in unity principles. So, but the basis of Buddhism is pretty simple. And I'm sure there are a lot of people who know. There's 4 noble truths. And the first is that there is suffering. Well, when I first heard that there is suffering, I thought, well, that's kind of depressing, because in unity we're like, everything is good, think positive, life is good and all of that. But then what happens in life? Stuff happens. And then you go, well, what's going on here? I was thinking positively. Why did that person cut me off? Or why did that person get sick? Or why did that happen? But Buddha understood through his own experience that there is suffering in life. People do get sick. People get old. People die. Things happen. And in our denying that, we create a lot of our own problems. I mean, because we're like, well, I don't want to look at that. Instead of looking at it and accepting it, and then knowing what is the cause of this suffering. Well, folks, the cause of the suffering, Buddha taught, was attachment. That's a big one. We love our stuff. We love our people. We love our thinking. We love all that stuff. And letting go of those attachments is not easy. Christopher bought me a T-shirt once that I love, and it says, I finally got a grip when I learned to let go. And because that's the secret of life, is learning how to let go. You know, the Buddhists have a saying, always be ready to leave. Always be ready to leave. You see, all this stuff that we are attached to causes us our suffering because we worry we're going to lose it, or we worry we're not going to get more, or we worry about what's going to happen to it. And so once we understand that there's suffering and that the suffering is caused by attachment, he says there is an end to suffering, which is good. That's the good news. There's an end to this. And then he goes on to explain the end is an eightfold path, which is all about right thinking, right speaking, right livelihood. In other words, it's about how we live our life. It isn't just about prayer and meditation. People think Buddhism is all about meditation. Buddhism is about how we live our life in the world today. And so today, I just wanted to talk about some of the things that have happened to me as a result of these Buddhist teachings. So about 10 years ago, I went on a 10-day silent retreat at a meditation center, and it was an amazing experience. Well, the first 8 days were horrible. And Christopher was there, and I was sending him little notes because you can't speak or do anything like that. So they have a bulletin board, and I'm writing little notes like, "Let's go home. I hate your guts. Why did you get me into this? You know, let's get our money back." You know, whatever. It was all like, they were love notes. They were wonderful love notes. And I'm thinking, what am I doing here? This is terrible. Not only can't I talk or do anything, I had to sit here and meditate hour after hour. Well, it's 1 hour you sit, 1 hour you walk and meditate, 1 hour you sit, 1 hour you walk. Then they tell you when you eat you have to meditate, you can't talk. You know, and for me, I'm used to eating on the run, standing up, and all of a sudden I had to sit with my food and be present to the moment. Oh my God, that was so out of the world for me. So I'm there on the 8th day wondering, what am I doing here? And I really need to leave. I've been doing this every day. And I'm not having much luck with my meditations. You know, I can't sit there. My mind is going, everything, yada, yada, yada. The thoughts are going on in my mind. And it's like the next to last day, and I'm getting ready to go into the meditation hall again. It was like, I'm going in again. And I heard a voice, and it said, "Go into the closet and pray." And I was like, Jesus is here. So I thought, and Jesus is telling me to go into the closet. So there happened to be a closet at the back of the meditation hall where they kept all the meditation supplies. So I thought, I'm going in the closet. Jesus says goes in the closet. I'm going in the closet. So I go into the closet, and I get out a cushion, and I'm sitting on the cushion thinking, this is the most ridiculous thing. If anyone saw me here in this closet, they would really probably send me away. And so I'm sitting there, and I finally had a meditation. It was like all of a sudden I was able to calm down and be centered. And I was like, wow. So the next period of meditation, I decided I'm going to try this in the meditation hall. It might be a good idea to meditate in the meditation hall instead of in this closet. So I'm sitting there in the meditation hall, and I'm meditating. And because I had just had this experience in the closet, I was actually having a pretty good meditation. And then all of a sudden, it was like my heart opened up, and I could see the interconnectedness of everything in the universe. It was like all of a sudden I could see everything was one. Whether it was the plants, the people, the animals, all parts of the earth, everything was one, and the tears just started coming down my face. I mean, I could not stop crying because all of a sudden I realized, oh my God, oh my God. And I thought, wow. So several years forward, Christopher says to me, I should know not to listen to my husband. He says to me, I think you need to go for a month. I think you should go for a month. I'm like, okay. So I take a sabbatical, and I go. I'm going to spend a month in the silence. I think I could do this. I did 10 days. I had this amazing experience. I'm all set, you know. 10 days is not 30 days, by the way. You can't count, which obviously I couldn't. I would have realized that 30 days is a little bit longer than 10 days. And so I'm meditating, and I'm walking, and I'm doing all this stuff. And I'm kind of getting used to being in the silence because nobody else is talking either. And someone asked me, they said, can you talk like to yourself? I said, oh, yeah, all the time. Constantly talk. I talk to the birds and the bees and the flowers. I talk to some rocks, anything that would listen to me, you know. And I didn't have to worry because none of them talked back to me. So it was good. But anyway, so all of a sudden I'm meditating, And I had this thought. I was there. Christopher was in Savannah, and he was going to be driving up to pick me up at the end of the month with my dog, Willow, in our truck, Red. And I had this thought that something happened and they all died, that there was an accident and they were all gone. And I was like, oh my God, they're all gone. Did I tell him I love him? What did I say? What were my last words that I said? And so I thought, I got to call him. Now, he hadn't even left Savannah yet. I said, I got to call him. And I had bought a calling card because, you can't have phones. And I had bought the wrong card and it didn't work. And so I couldn't call him and I couldn't do anything. And I was just like in a panic because there was this thought that all of a sudden, I was going to get done meditating and everything I loved in my life was going to be gone. And so I went to one of my teachers and I said, I need to call my husband and just tell him that I love him because I had this dream. And what if this dream is a premonition? And I need to at least know that I told him that I loved him. And so they let me send an email. And so I sent him an email and I just said, I want you to know that I love you. Now, I hadn't spoken to him, so I didn't know if he got it or whatever. But I had done what I needed to do to clear myself. And then she said, you have to sit with this and you have to release it. You have to practice non-attachment. And so I would do a lot of walking meditation and a lot of metta meditation, which is loving kindness. And I would just do this metta meditation for him, for our dog, for our truck, for everybody in the world. And I had no idea what was the outcome. But by doing that, I finally got to the point where I was able to say, whatever happens, I am okay. Because I am ready. I've had this. It's been good. Whatever happens, it is done. And then I was okay. And I did not find out if they were okay until the last day of my retreat when he pulled up in the truck and I knew it was okay. And I realized that experience was an experience for me to learn to be able to let go. Little did I know it was a premonition of what was to come. And this really has nothing to go, well, it does have something to go with letting go. So I practice all this metta, this loving kindness, seeing the whole world as wonderful, wishing them health and happiness and safety. And so we're driving back to Savannah after we left the retreat center. And our truck we sold it just this year, was a 99 Toyota truck. And at that time it had 325,000 miles on it. I never had a problem. And everyone knows how I loved my truck. And we were on an expressway, and we were in Virginia, and all of a sudden, everything went dead. And this truck has never broke down. In all those years and all those miles, never broke down. And so we turned off all the air conditioning and everything, and I talked to the truck. I talked to the truck a lot. And that's probably why it had so many miles on it. And so I said, come on, we can do this, we can get somewhere. And then, so we're traveling a little further, and then all of a sudden, it goes dead. And we knew we were like maybe a half a mile from an exit. And so Christopher and I are like, we're praying, and we're going, you can do this, you can do this. And I don't know how that truck had no power, got off that exit, off the ramp. To this day, I have no idea that it happened. And right off the ramp was a gas station. Now, it was Labor Day weekend, and it was a Sunday. And it was hot, and it wasn't a gas station that did repairs. And we're sitting there, and I thought, I didn't even know if I had the motor club. Did I pay the motor club? You know what happens. Did I pay the motor club? Did I renew it? What did I renew? And so we thought, well, we'll call the motor club. And we're sitting there, and the motor club takes a long time. We're sitting there, and a man comes along and says to us, you have a problem with your car? And we said, yeah, it stopped working. He says, well, I'm a mechanic. Let me look at it. So he looks at it and he goes, it's your alternator. And we're like, well, it's a Sunday on Labor Day. And he says, I think I know someone I can get an alternator from. So he makes a phone call and he says, yeah, I can get you an alternator. It's going to be $90. And if you if you want, I'll go get you the alternator. So I said, okay. So not thinking, I went into the store. I got the ATM. I got $100. I gave this man $100. He takes off. And about 10 minutes pass, and Christopher and I look at each other and go, so how long should we give this guy before we decide that he's not coming back, or he is coming back? Should we call the motor club now? Should we give him some time? And so we decided we were going to give him 20 minutes, 30 minutes. We decided we're going to give him half an hour. And we're sitting there and we're thinking, I thought if I hadn't been doing all of those meditations, there's no way. I'm from New York. There's no way I'm giving someone. I'm not handing a stranger $100 in cash. I'm not even handing my best friend $100 in cash. Unless I get an IOU or something, their firstborn child or some kind of thing. So I give this guy $100 and we're sitting there, we're waiting. Well, I have to tell you, not only did he come back, but he says to us, I live right over there. Let's push your car over there. You guys could sit on my front porch and be cool. I'll put the truck under the tree. He did fix the truck. He invited us into, now he didn't know us either, and if you've seen Christopher, he looks a little weird sometimes. And we're in the middle of country of Virginia. We're not in Orlando or New York or anything. And he says, the house is open. Go in, take whatever you want. Take food, take water, whatever. He fixed the truck. He was so nice. He says, if you're ever in this area, here's my name and number. It was like the Good Samaritan. And I thought, if I hadn't been in that mindset to expect good from people, I wouldn't have received that good from people. Because, it's like Alice said, we're praying up there, but it's within us and it's within each of us. But what happens is we don't see it within each of us. There's a story of a Buddhist group of monks years earlier, and there was a war coming, and they had this big golden Buddha. And they were afraid that when the soldiers came, they were going to take their golden Buddha. And so they decided to hide the golden Buddha by putting mud all around it in clay. So when the soldiers came into this village, they saw this clay Buddha, they figured it wasn't worth anything, and they let it be. And years passed, and people had forgotten about it. And one day, years later, a monk was cleaning this Buddha, and he happened to see something shining coming through. And so he cleaned it, and he discovered within that clay Buddha was this golden Buddha. And so within each one of us is a golden Buddha. We call it the Christ within. But within each one of us is a golden Buddha. So if within us is the golden Buddha, that means within this person is a golden Buddha, or within that person is a golden Buddha. But we just don't realize it because we are trained to think, well, everyone's out to get me, or there's not enough in the world. And so we hold on to things in fear. Well, one of the things that Buddha taught a lot about was generosity. In fact, it was the first thing he taught his disciples was generosity. Because when we have a generous heart, then A, we don't hold on to stuff, and we let go of things. Not just money, but our time, our love, our attention. We are willing to let go of this stuff because we know there's always enough. We live in an abundant universe, right? Right? Do we live in an abundant universe? This is unity, right? So we live in an abundant universe. So if we live in an abundant universe, why do we think we have to hold on to everything? Because we think there's not enough. Or we think if you have your good, it means I'm not going to get my good. There's just so much to go around. But he taught that once we have a generous heart, we understand that there's always enough to go around. So one way in unity we practice that is through tithing, right? This is the tithing church. And what does tithing do? Tithing for me over the years taught me about generosity. It taught me that there was enough. Because in times when it didn't seem like there was enough and I tithed, there always seemed to be enough. It's amazing how that happens, right? You look at your bank book, you get your check, and you look at your bank book, and you look at your bills, and you look at the check, and you go, 1 + 1 = 2. In this case, 1 + 1 = 0, or whatever. And you think, I don't have enough money to tithe. And we write that check anyway. we write that check because we cannot help but give. And as soon as we open our heart in giving, what happens? The universe comes and just pours things, abundance, all kinds of blessings into us. I've had so many stories about giving and receiving and giving when I didn't have and what I got. It's just good. I could write 3 books about it because it works. And Buddha understood that. He understood that non-attachment is directly how well we can non-attach is directly in relationship to how generous of a heart we have. So I went back, believe it or not, for another month of silence. Like 1 month wasn't enough. And this time I took my phone, although I turned it off because if I had another dream that, something happened, I wanted to be able to at least text Christopher and make sure they were okay. And but I had decided before I went that I was going to leave my church. I didn't know what I was going to do. I just was going to leave the church. Because a couple of years earlier, I had done some work. I was doing some inner work. And I began to ask myself the question, if I could do anything, if age was no object, if money was no object, if education was no object, what is it that you would want to do? So, initially it came out, I want to do church. But then I really sat with that question. And I thought what I've always wanted to do was travel to places I wanted to see. And I had a whole list. And I want to speak. I want to teach. I want to write. That's what I want to do. But I want the freedom to be able to go where I want to go, to do what I want to do. And I thought, okay, well, this was like a couple of years ago. I thought, when I have enough money that I can feel comfortable doing this, I'm going to do this. So I have to find a way to make a lot of money so I can do this dream. Because I figured I need to write the bestseller. I had all these great ideas of how I was going to make all this money. So I go to this retreat center, and it became really obvious to me that what I needed to do was to leave the church without having any idea of how I was going to live my dream. And so while I'm sitting in this meditation, I got the thought, oh my God, I had told my board I was leaving. So I kind of had closed the door so I couldn't change my mind. Because once I tell people something, that's what I do. Excuse me. So I'm sitting in meditation, and all of a sudden the thought comes that, I made a mistake. Have you ever done that? We're so sure we know what's right for us. We go out like Don Quixote. We're going to get those windmills. We're going to do our thing. And then what happens is we get out there on the donkey and we go, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm out here. I have no idea what I'm doing. I think I need to go back and rethink this. And of course I couldn't. And so I had to sit through an anxiety attack. I had to go through a lot of internal stuff. And I was talking to my teacher in one of these 15-minute sessions, and I said to her, I think I made a big mistake. I made this decision, and I think it's not the right decision for me. And but I know that I've said this, and I'm really, once I tell you something, I'm one of these people, I tell you something, that's it. That's it. That's my word. That's all I've got. And that's, what I'm going to do for you. I said, but I can't, but I've set this in stone, and this is what I've got to do. And she said to me, and I'll never forget this, she said, you have made the decision. It is done. It is the past. And now you have to ask yourself, where do you want to go from here? What is done, and all you can do is change your thinking and decide something positive to go to. So I'm thinking, all right. So another thing that came up in this retreat is there's different personality types in Buddhism. And beside the fact that craving is one of my big things since I'm in recovery, I also discovered, sitting in the silence, that I am a restless spirit. I am a restless spirit. I am such a restless spirit that when I was a child, my parents said I was left on the doorsteps by gypsies, because they couldn't explain why I was like I was. First of all, I was never with them. I was this child wandering around the neighborhood. No one even knew who I belonged to. I was just like this loose kid, just always in somebody's house, not knowing where. And then all my life, that's what I've been doing. I've been, changing. I changed jobs at an age when most people do retire. I just recreate myself to the next thing. And I go here and I go there. And so I realized, well, if I have a restless spirit, then I'm going to accept that. And if I am a gypsy at heart, I'm going to accept that. And so after I made this decision to leave the church, having no idea what I was going to do, I said to Christopher, you know what? We've talked about this for years. Let's get an RV and travel around the country. And I was like, okay, what else do you do? Like if gypsies go around in caravans, we'll go around in an RV. So that's when we made the decision to do this RV thing. But the whole point of this is, when we sit with our thoughts, Buddhism is big on mindfulness. One of the things I learned is that my whole life, have tried to escape my thinking. I don't want to really hear what my true self is telling me. And so I'm going to distract myself. I'm going to distract myself with all this outside stuff. How much outside stuff can I distract myself with? To never find out what it is that I really need to do. And so what I discovered in sitting there in the silence, and what I know even today, is that there's nothing that I cannot do, because God is working in and through me and as me. And so sometimes we have to take that step, that leap of faith, and go out to do what it is we are called to do. Because I'm not getting any younger. I know that's hard to tell. But, this year, every year for my birthday, I've done something. Like for my 69th birthday, I did 60 days of Bikram yoga in 60 classes in 60 days. And then I decided it wasn't enough, so I did 69. And then I did 2 more just for the hell of it. And then for my 70th birthday, a girlfriend and I, we did a zip line because I'm afraid of heights. So I thought, I'm going to go on a zip line. So this was 71. I thought I'm going to go travel across the country and figure out if I believe what unity teaches me, right? If I believe these teachings that God is going to give me whatever I need, that we live and breathe in an abundant universe, and that everything I need I already have and is here, then I'm going to go out and test it. I'm going to go out and prove that what I've been teaching for all these years is in fact the truth. And I'm going to do it by the way I'm going to live my life. So that's what we're doing. We're stepping out in this RV, and we're just going to go see what happens. And it all started because I listened to my husband and went into silence. But it doesn't mean you shouldn't do it. Because there's a lot of power that comes from when we sit in the quiet. So I invite you to close your eyes and take a few deep breaths. And relax the body, relax the mind, and let go. Let go of anything that you might have brought in here from the past. For what is behind you is behind you. And put aside any fears or concerns for the future. Because what is to be will be. And allow your breath to center you in this moment, in this now. Just allow yourself to breathe. If any thoughts come up, don't fight them. Just watch them. Even name them. Like maybe it's a thought of planning or worrying. And just let them go. And just begin to watch your mind. If we believe that our thoughts and our beliefs create our life, we have to stop and ask ourselves, what do I believe? What am I thinking? Every time your mind starts to wander, just bring it back to the breath. The breath is your connection with this moment. It is your lifeline. It is the essence of your being and your connection with all other beings. Not only in this time, but all the times before. And just sit in the awareness, in the mindfulness, in the silence. Within each one of us is a wise heart. Within each one of us is a golden Buddha. I invite you to take time every day to get in touch with that golden Buddha, allowing its light, its preciousness, its worthiness shine out into the world for you, for myself, for all of us are truly the light of the world. And so I invite you to go out and let it shine. And for that light and for that blessing, we say, thank you, God. Thank you, God. Thank you, God. And so it is.